Today we're diving into one of the most structurally perfect, physics-defying moments in all of sports history. We're talking about a moment that lasted merely 6 seconds from inception to execution, yet it permanently altered the legacy of a legendary club and completely cemented the mythos of a global superstar.
So, what happens when absolute fearlessness meets perfect physics? I really want you to let that question linger for a second. Because today, we're going to stretch out a fleeting, microscopic fraction of a match to figure out exactly how a single player silenced an entire stadium, bypassed every known tactical convention, and totally rewrote what was considered physically possible on a football pitch.
Section 1. Into the Dragon's Lair, setting the stage for an impossible task.
Okay, let's go back to April 15th, 2009. The pressure leading into this evening was absolutely suffocating. Manchester United had just come off an incredibly frustrating 2-2 draw at their home fortress, Old Trafford. That meant they had to travel to Portugal for the second leg of the Champions League quarterfinals, facing a massive historical brick wall. Get this, no English club in the entire history of the sport had ever beaten Porto on this pitch. Not one. That was the staggering mountain they were staring down the moment the referee blew the opening whistle.
And the Estádio de Dragão, it didn't just host the match that night. It felt like it was actively trying to swallow it whole. We're talking about over 50,000 passionate fans creating a fiercely hostile, intimidating cauldron. But their main target wasn't just the opposing team. No, they were aiming at their own native son. Cristiano Ronaldo was returning to his home country, but this time he was wearing Manchester red. Every single chant, every deafening whistle, every jeer from the stands was weaponized to break his concentration.
Section 2, 40 yards out. The anatomy of the decision.
6 minutes. The match was so incredibly young that half the fans were probably still settling into their seats or grabbing a drink. The game had absolutely no rhythm yet. A seemingly mundane play was just slowly unfolding deep inside the Porto half. The tension was thick, for sure, but there was absolutely nothing to suggest that football history was about to happen in the blink of an eye.
But if we slow things down and look at the microseconds before the strike, you witness an absolute masterclass in spatial awareness. Cristiano gets this casual, simple, short pass from Anderson right in the middle of the pitch. He scans the field and immediately realizes the Porto defenders are making a fatal error. They're slowly backing away to cover passing lanes instead of applying direct pressure to the ball. Seeing that open grass, he shifts his weight and takes one brief, violently explosive stride forward. And he was roughly 40 yards away from the goal. Let's just take a second to put that sheer distance into perspective. In a highly competitive professional football match, 40 yards isn't just far away. It's practically a different time zone. It's a distance where goalkeepers feel entirely safe, defenders feel fine giving up a yard or two, and the threat level is universally considered to be pretty much zero.
Honestly, ask any modern coach or run any advanced analytics model, and they will definitively tell you that shooting from 40 yards out is just sheer foolishness. It's a terrible decision and a total waste of possession. But Cristiano doesn't live in a world of conservative analytics. He sees those retreating defenders, and he doesn't see a foolish risk. He's operating on pure, unshakable confidence. Ignoring everything that makes sense on paper, he just decides to pull the trigger anyway.
Section 3. Defying the laws of physics. The mechanics of a surface-to-air missile.
He unleashes this ferocious right-footed strike, and the ball detonates off his boot at an astonishing speed of over 60 miles per hour. Generally speaking, generating that kind of breathtaking velocity requires a massive sprinting run-up to build momentum. To do it from a near-standing start, right in the middle of a crowded pitch, that requires a level of biomechanical perfection that very, very few humans have ever possessed. And what left spectators, and literally scientists, absolutely baffled was that this ball acted like a surface-to-air missile. It entirely defied the basic laws of aerodynamics. Normally, when you strike a ball with that much blunt force, it's either going to rise into the upper deck or dip wildly because of topspin. Not this one. It maintained a terrifyingly flat, laser-straight trajectory cutting right through the night air. Zero rising, zero dipping, just pure, unyielding kinetic force.
Porto's goalkeeper Helton sees the strike coming and launches himself through the air in absolute desperation. But the ball flies past his outstretched fingertips before his brain can even properly process the trajectory. The sheer velocity in that flat flight path meant he was beaten before his body could fully react. The ball violently crashed into the top left-hand corner, almost tearing the net right off the stanchion. The immediate emotional whiplash was wild. That hostile 50,000-strong cauldron instantly flatlined into a stunned, breathless silence. 50,000 people, just unable to comprehend what they just saw. But meanwhile,
tucked away in the upper corner of the stadium, the small pocket of traveling Manchester United fans erupted in absolute chaotic delirium. With one violent swing of a boot, the emotional reality of that entire stadium was perfectly inverted.
And the impact of this strike wasn't just felt in the stands. Even Sir Alex Ferguson, a legendary manager who spent decades watching the greatest players on earth, leaped out of his dugout. He threw his hands up in total awe at the visual spectacle he had just witnessed. He later went on to simply call it, quote, the greatest goal I had ever seen live.
Section 4. The inaugural Puskás Award. The legacy of a miracle.
The fallout of that single strike was huge for the season. United completely shut down the rest of the game, holding on tightly to win the match 1-0. They successfully navigated this impossible environment and advanced to the Champions League semifinals. And that entire hard-fought advancement rested entirely on the back of that solitary, miraculous strike. The historic curse in Porto was shattered by just 6 seconds of pure individual brilliance.
But the legacy of that strike transcended that single tournament. Later that year, FIFA inaugurated the Puskás Award, an honor created specifically to recognize the single most beautiful goal scored anywhere in the world during the calendar year. Cristiano's long-range rocket was the undisputed first winner, setting an impossibly high gold standard right out of the gate.
Looking back, it's so clear this wasn't just a lucky shot or a fortunate gust of wind. It was born out of pure, unadulterated confidence. It was the byproduct of an elite athlete fully aware of his own peak abilities. Executing that shot took ultimate fearlessness, unwavering self-belief, and a mastery of physical power that had simply never been seen before in the modern game.
Cristiano literally transformed what was supposed to be a highly intimidating, impossible environment into his own personal playground. He looked at a 40-yard gap, a space most would see as a tactical dead end, and decided to completely dictate the terms of reality, bending the physics of the game to his exact will.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Whenever his team needed a miracle, Cristiano proved he could deliver one from thin air. When the stakes are at their absolute highest in your own life, the external pressure is immense, and the physics of your situation seem completely impossible. What does it take for you to bend reality to your will? Thanks for joining me.